Our Washington watchdog, Jamie Dupree, joins us. Hi, Jamie.
Morning, Joe.
All right, give us an update here on the race for the White House.
Well, Santorum's the only one on the stump today with events in Oklahoma City and Tulsa, and from what his people said, they had to get a bigger venue in Oklahoma City because they're expecting a big crowd. All the other candidates off the trail today. Then everybody will make their way to D.C. tomorrow, where actually Santorum, Romney, and Gingrich will give big speeches to a conservative conference that's beginning in D.C. I think everybody here in sort of political Washington still scratching their heads and trying to figure out exactly what the Santorum victories earlier this week mean. In one sense, there are a lot of people who sort of write it off and say in the end Mitt Romney will hold the advantage and will be able to win on Super Tuesday. But, you know, a lot of other people wondering if Rick Santorum can really spin something big here over the next few weeks.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, I would imagine, for any of the candidates, clearly, at this point, to be able to continue to cut through the clutter of the race.
Well, look, it's all about momentum, too. I noted the first email today from the Romney shop going after Rick Santorum. I put it up on a tweet. Basically, they have a nice new little masthead picture that they've put together about Rick Santorum that says, Rick went to Washington and he never came back. And there's a picture of him in front of the Capitol and then all kinds of money over on the side, much like they've done with Newt Gingrich, where the Romney people have him pictured with Nancy Pelosi in a little masthead photo that goes out on the emails to reporters. The Romney tagline today channels, sort of paraphrases Will Rogers and says Santorum never met an earmark he didn't like, as they're trying to sort of put Santorum and Gingrich together and say that they were part of the problem in Washington, D.C. when it comes to big spending. Santorum, though, still believes that he can tap into that dissatisfaction, what I like to call the vague, lingering sense of dissatisfaction with Romney among some Republican voters who just don't see him as conservative enough. And you'd have to look at Oklahoma just off the top of our head and think that Santorum and Gingrich would maybe fare the best in Oklahoma in coming weeks. We'll have to see if anybody takes control.
I'd have to think that from Mitt Romney's perspective, he gets the sense that he's, kind of swatting at flies, in that he, had been for a while there going after Obama. Then he said, I better go after Gingrich. And now he's thinking, I better go after Santorum. I mean, he just kind of keeps refocusing his target.
Sure, but death by one slap over the head or by 1,000 cuts is still death. So, I mean, in that sense, they've got to make sure that they come up with a good kind of game plan here. Try to figure out exactly where they want to contest various states on Super Tuesday. I mean, frankly, I think it'll be interesting to see, will Romney stop in Oklahoma? Will he decide to go on the air in Oklahoma? Or will he just sort of maybe decide, well, there are certain areas that will, in a sense, cede to Santorum and Gingrich? Romney has a lot of money, but it's not a bottomless pit. And with 10 states on one day on Super Tuesday, those decisions on advertising will be very interesting.
We went out yesterday to talk to some Tulsans and ask them of their familiarity with the candidates, and Rick Santorum was still on the bottom end of that list of people who knew who he was. In fact, several people said, yeah, it's Rick, but then they went with Perry afterwards. Well,
look, that's one of the things right now, but again, that's when you'll get people to focus, and I think it frustrates a lot of people that a lot of people don't focus until just, say, a couple of days or a week before the event, and then they're pushed around by the various ads and things that may not exactly be true, but that's the nature of a lot of voters. There are some who are very, very engaged, and others who are not. Just look at how local politics works out. There'll be an issue before the city or county commission that only a handful of people will know about, then it'll explode, and then everybody gets focused at it. It's the same kind of thing for many when it comes to voting for president.
And then lastly, Santorum, Romney, and Gingrich are all going to be in D.C. today? Friday,
no,
Friday.
they're not here till tomorrow. There's a big conservative conference that begins today in D.C., the CPAC conference. Then tomorrow you have Santorum, Romney, and Gingrich speaking before that conference here in D.C.
All right, is that the kind of thing where they run into each other in the hallways beforehand?
No, they're spaced. I think Santorum is at 10:30, Romney at 12:50, and Gingrich at 4:10. Gingrich tomorrow will actually get the worst time of anybody, because by 4 o'clock, I'll guarantee you, most of my colleagues will have long written their stories about the CPAC conference.
May well indeed. All right, our Washington watchdog, Jamie Dupree, here on Tulsa's election headquarters.
Whoa. Wow. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Thank you. Please, thank you very much. Thank you very much, President Rutland. I appreciate it. Matt, thank you. Kara, Thank you all for being here. And let me first, obviously, I know we just had a medical emergency, and I know that a prayer very appropriately was said here, and certainly I was back there and participating in that prayer, and we certainly wish the very, very best to the gentleman who is having a health problem, and I just want again to keep him in mind as we have this event that he came here to participate and see our government, our political process in action, and hopefully he came here to cheer us on. And so in that spirit, we'll continue to have this event and do so, and hopefully in our enthusiasm, hopefully give some positive energy and some prayer to him as he struggles in his health circumstances. So thank the folks here for saying that prayer and for recognizing that. Let me, as we get started here, introduce the other two people. You might have noticed a couple other people came out with me. We are, President Rutland mentioned, we have 7 children. I'm very proud of the fact that we have 7 children, ages 20 to 3.5. And you know, Social Security and Medicare are a big demographic problem, and I'm doing my part to try to fix that problem. So I am a full-time servant of the people, trying to fix all the problems that we have in my personal life as well as my public life. But many of you know about our little girl, our youngest, little Isabella, we call Bella, and she went through a difficult health time about a week and a half ago, almost 2 weeks ago now, when I was fortunate enough, really blessed enough to be home when she got very, very sick, and we ended up having to take her to the hospital, and we put out a little notice. And usually you don't put out a notice when your child goes to the hospital, but it was one of those times where I was scheduled to be on the campaign trail, and just sort of not showing up is not something you can do when you run for president. And so you had to let folks know, and it turned out to be the greatest blessing to tell people that we had our little girl, had to get to the hospital, and she was in an emergency situation, really a life-threatening situation. And the way this country responded, all across this country, people, you know, who don't agree with me on anything, and many folks who contacted us who told me that they don't even pray, but they were praying for Bella. And it really touched me. And I just want to say to everybody here, thank you. Thank you for your prayers, and she has had truly for her, a miraculous recovery. She is doing just great. I'm going to get home. This is my last event before I get to go home and see Bella, so and my wife and the kids, and so I just appreciate it. I can't think of a better send-off for the last week that I've had. I mean, Tuesday was a good night, but wow, this is amazing. But with me are Isabella's two oldest, her oldest brother and her oldest sister, and that's my daughter Elizabeth and my son John, right over there. Well, I know this is a political event and an educational event, so we're gonna make this try to make this as interesting to everybody as possible. I know there are questions up here from the students here at ORU, and we want to have that good interaction, Socratic method. So they're going to start, poking at me on their questions, and I'm looking forward to that. Let me just share with you what I think this election is all about. I've been saying since 800 town meetings ago that I believe this is the most important election in your lifetime, and it doesn't matter how old you are. This is an election about big things. Yes, it's an election about an economy that is sick. Yes, it's an election about jobs that are not being created. Yes, this is an election about government debt and deficits that are choking this country. Yes, it's an election about the size and growth of government that is crushing American business and crushing your freedoms. Yes, this is an election about a president who is allowing things to occur in the world almost apathetically to to rally forces that have been out there over the last few decades that want to do harm to America. And we had the audacity of calling it an Arab Spring. And what we see now is that Arab Spring is an icy, cold winter of radical Islamists. You hear much now about the hostages being held in Egypt. A year ago, would have even thought about that? No. A year ago, we didn't have radical Islamists in control of Egypt. And we had a president of the United States, not only did he sit by and do nothing, but he sat by and encouraged the radical Islamists to oppose an ally of the United States in the state of Israel. And now those radical Islamists are imposing Sharia law. These radical Islamists are holding Americans hostages. And it's not just there, but it's in Iran. Yes, they're holding hostages in Iran to Americans. And they are building a nuclear weapon. And the president reluctantly fights with Congress just to do the minimum to try to slow them down. And then we see in Syria, the only reason the president of the United States withdraws our embassy from Syria, which he was the one that put in place to reward the thug Bashar Assad and his reign of terror over the people of Syria. We rewarded him by putting an embassy there. And the only reason we removed it is because they wouldn't guarantee the safety of the embassy, not because we wanted to pull that out as a sign of lack of support for this thug. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a president of the United States that on every single count, and I haven't mentioned the one, his slow dissemination of freedom of religion, freedom of conscience, standing up and talking about abortion as if it was something that denied that having life and being pregnant was something that would deny people their dreams. This callousness toward life and family and faith and even open hostility. This is the president of the United States today. This is a president who has a fundamentally different view of America than what made America the greatest country in the history of the world. That's why this election is so important. This is how the president acts when he's still up and subject to re-election. He still has to take political considerations into consideration. Imagine a President Obama with 4 years and no one to be accountable to. Imagine what he can do. Imagine what damage and destruction he can do internationally to our friend Israel, who stands and pleads with us to help. And what do? We send out the Secretary of Defense to tell the world that Israel is planning attacks and then condemns them and invites the rest of the world to do likewise. We have a President of the United States who already has successfully taken over the healthcare system in this country. And one of the things I talk about all the time, I wouldn't be in this race if it wasn't for Obamacare. If it wasn't for the fact that we have a system in place right now in America that is going to dictate to you your economic choices when it comes to healthcare. It's going to take away your freedom. It's going to tell you what healthcare plan you're going to have, how much you're going to pay, how much your employer is going to pay, what doctors you're going to be able to go to, what the limits in your insurance are. All of these things are now going to be dictated by the federal government, not by you, not by any choices. You're going to have that mandated to you. And that was one of the reasons that got me in the race, but there was actually more. I talked about this being a freedom issue, but the one I knew people would understand is the freedom to be able to interchange with the healthcare system the way you want it. But now we see that it's more than that, isn't it? If the government says they're going to give you a right, they can then tell you how to exercise that right. You see, our founders believed that rights don't come from the government. They come from And when you get your rights, which is what our country was founded upon, I always carry around, I always look what pocket I have it in, my Constitution. This is the operator's manual of America. This is how America is supposed to be governed, by this document. And it was for over 200 years. We had this document, but there was another important document. And by the way, this document revolutionized the world. This document was put in place to do really one thing, and that was to protect the essence of America. And the essence of America, the why of America, came in another document that happens to be printed. And if you have your pocket Constitution, most pocket Constitutions just don't print the Constitution, but they also print the Declaration of Independence. And in that Declaration of Independence is a phrase that you folks here in Oklahoma, and I know at Oral Roberts, you know that phrase. And that is, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their in certain unalienable rights, among them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That is the essence of America. We are a country that believes in all people are equal. Now, we sort of take that for granted in America. Well, of course, everybody's equal. Even folks who see the Declaration of Independence as sort of an old dead letter. The folks in the progressive movement, the left, they're trying to ease out the Declaration of Independence. It's inconvenient for them because it says that rights come from God instead of from the government. And in the world of the left, it's the government that gives you rights. And so they try to ease out the Declaration, but it's interesting, when it comes to the issue of equality, they're all for it. They use that term all the time, equality, equality. Where does equality come from? Do you find equality between men and women and different people in society in other cultures in America, in the world? No, you do not. No, you do not. You find it in Western civilization. You find it because we are a Judeo-Christian country. And you find it because the roots of equality come from the fact that we are all equal, not because Kara and I are equal. She is much better looking than I am. I'm taller than she is. That's about it. But we're not equal. None of us are equal from a standpoint of a humanistic point of view. What makes us equal is that we're equal in the eyes of God. We all have dignity. We all have dignity and worth because of that. So here we are, as we accept equality, but we don't recognize where the equality comes from. We accept rights, but this administration doesn't remember where the rights come from. Our Constitution is here to do one thing: protect these rights. And as a result of that, we can have a country. We did have a country. And I believe today we still have a country that believes and functions best when we allow people to exercise these rights to do what? To pursue their dreams, to form families, to form churches, to form civic and community organizations, to build a network, a rich network of civil society, of people being connected with each other, to build schools. Look at this community. Look at this community. How knitted together this community is. How much you receive and are nurtured, not from government, but by something that was built here. Something that feeds you in more ways than one. The richness of what Americans built based on pursuing their dreams, pursuing one man's dream, pursuing a community's dream. Think about what transformation you have done in the lives of millions without the government. That's what America's about. That's the richness. That's why it's so hard, folks, to take what happened here in America and transplant it everywhere. Because what we did here was unique, was different. The French tried to copy us in the French Revolution. Oh, they had their Constitution. But the watchwords of their revolution were 3 words: liberty, good; equality, good; and fraternity, problematic. Because fraternity means each other, brothers, right? Brotherhood without fatherhood, without a creator. And when that happens, then rights don't come from God, they come from each other. And of course, once you have this radical document of freedom like our Constitution, and you give people the ability of self-government, and they have no rights they have to respect other than ones in which they give each other, then guess what? You get a guillotine. We have a president now who believes that government should be able to create rights and force you to exercise those rights in conformity with what they believe, not the rights that you have, the unalienable rights that you have. And that's why you see a church in America. I know it's the Catholic Church, but it's the Catholic Church first. It won't be the last if they get away with it. And they say that you will not. Here's the interesting part about this. We have an insurance policy that the federal government has said to Catholic charities that you will provide free contraception, abortifacients, the morning after pill, and sterilization to the people who work for you. And if you don't, we will fine you $150 million. We're not suggesting that the people who work for Catholic charities can't go out and buy those things. They can. We're not banning them from buying it. We're not prohibiting them. We're just saying they're just making someone who doesn't believe in those things pay for someone to do something which they consider to be a grievous moral wrong. If they can make you do that, if they get away with this, Barbara Boxer, I know I hate to say those words. I always say Barbara Boxer is like a dog whistle to me. I mean, I hear her talk, it's just boom. So she's out there, what's she saying today? She says the rights of women to choose trumps religious liberty in America. Folks, this is what they believe. They believe the rights in the Constitution, well, those unalienable rights, we are the ones who create the rights. And so when we talk about what's really important in our country, we talk about this growth in the size and scale of government. It's not just going to crush your economic freedom. You give government control, they will wield it. I always get a kick out of the talk, and I get this all the time. You're a moralizer. You're trying to impose your morality on us. What's that? What's that? What did they just do? You see, here's the interesting thing. Here's the real interesting thing. In America, America, based on the Judeo-Christian principles of Western civilization, practiced better here than any other country in the world. We are the most tolerant country in the world. Look at America. I mean, let's look at us. I mean, I know sometimes it's hard to look. You want to see diversity? You want to see tolerance of behavior? There's no place in the world where behavior is tolerant like this country. Except behavior that is against the radical secular ideals of the left. And then, particularly if you're a Christian, you are told, stop it. You have to be out of the public square. You have to do this in private. We now have both the Secretary of State and the President have referred to the freedom in the Constitution, the freedom of religion. They have repeatedly referred to it not as the freedom of religion anymore. You know what they refer to it as? The freedom of worship. Now, I don't know about you, but my religion goes beyond worship. What are you doing right here? What are you doing right here at Oral Roberts? You are practicing the freedoms that you've been given of religion to educate people consistent with the values of your faith. That is a freedom not of worship, but it is a religious freedom, and an important religious freedom. Folks, this is a key election. And it's not just about the values I've talked about, it has an impact on everybody in America. Because what government is doing is getting bigger and bigger, spending an enormous amount of money, throwing us into immoral debt, crushing the business community in this country. We need someone who can go out there and articulate a vision that says that we need not only to liberate the business community, which we need to do with lower taxes and less regulation. If we really want to get the business community going, one surefire way is to drive up energy production and lower the cost of energy in this country. I knew that would get a good number here in Tulsa. Now, I just want to remind you where that first oil well was drilled in America. No, it was not in Oklahoma. It was just about 40 miles up the road from where I grew up, a little place called Titusville, Pennsylvania. And I bet a lot of folks from Western Pennsylvania from those oil wells came down here to Tulsa. And we probably have a few Pennsylvania roots here in town. And we believe in Pennsylvania. We've seen it from the very early days of the energy industry. But we see it now. Thanks to the great technology developed here of hydrofracking, we are seeing the gas industry in Pennsylvania explode. And as a result, cost of gas going down. You know, we have the cheapest natural gas in the world, $2.50. I know that gives heartaches to some folks in the industry, but because we have an abundance of domestic fuel, our gas, believe it or not, is $2.50. In the Middle East, it's $15, $17. In Europe, it's about the same. In China, it's a little bit more. We have a huge economic advantage, and what are we doing with it? Trying to eliminate that advantage. The President of the United States is now going out and said, oh, well, we've got to be concerned about this new technology, hydrofracking. New technology? Last I saw, there was about 800,000 wells drilled in this country using this technology. But since the environmentalists have now been outed with the politicization of the science of this man-made global warming shtick, they've got to find a new fundraising tool. They've got to find a new fundraising tool. First it was Anwar, but now the president's taken that off the table. So they got to find hydrofracking. Why are they picking? Because we're doing it now in the East. Well, that's maybe the other reason. See, we're doing it now near the population centers. So now we can bring, instead, out here in flyover country to the elitist in Washington, if you do stuff out here, well, how can we raise money on you folks out here in Oklahoma and Texas? But if we start doing it outside of Philadelphia and New York, whoa, dollar signs. We can now say, look at what's going on. You're going to ruin your water tables, and they're going to pollute your streams, and they're going to, all these horrible This is the stick. Why? Why? Because they want higher prices. They want to control. They want power. They want the ability to be able to push their agenda, their radical agenda on you. And they know that the higher the price is, the worse this economy is going to do. They don't believe that creation is here to serve man. They believe man is here to serve creation. And so as a result, we have a president of the United States who sides with them on everything. The Keystone Pipeline. How many pipelines are going through that section of the country? Hundreds. And now we have an opportunity to bring Canadian oil into this country, into Oklahoma, at a time when Mexico, which gives us about 1.5 million barrels a day, guess what? That's going to be wiped out in about 3 or 4 years. They're depleting to the point where they're not going to have that. Venezuela, it's 2.5. China's building a refinery in Venezuela for their heavy crude, and they're going to take all their gasoline. Alaska, within 10 years, maybe less, their field used to be 2 million barrels a day. It's now down to 500,000. And if it gets down to 350,000, the pipeline shuts down. And we'll get nothing from Alaska. We don't open up Anwar, Alaskan oil will be gone. That adds up to almost, well, that's 4.5 million barrels a day. Plus, what is coming down from Canada now is going to be piped over to the West Coast and sent to China. Imagine what's going to happen to our oil industry in this country. Folks, we need to have a president that's on your side, that's on the side of affordable energy. Well, this race is about those big issues. Government control of the manufacturing and energy sector of the economy, because energy prices drives manufacturing as well as energy. Same thing with healthcare. These are the big issues of the day, of government control of your lives. And we need someone who can go out there and articulate a message and a vision for a wealthier America, a freer America, America that believes in faith and freedom and family and small business and opportunity and those media and institutions that can build and regenerate a great and strong America at the grassroots so we can continue to build this country from the bottom up, instead of a man who believes that when there's a problem that confronts us in America, that we solve it from the top down. And who would I offer to you as the best person to make that challenge? Well, Could it be the person who did not support a government-mandated health insurance program? Could it be the candidate who did not, as governor of Massachusetts, author the child that became the adult of Obamacare, Romney Care? I gave a speech in Rochester, Minnesota last week where I laid out chapter and verse. I actually took the time and really started to study this. And it was amazing, the similarities between these two bills. Amazing. When I don't agree with President Obama about very much, but when he says he copied Romney Care to make Obamacare, I believe him. And it's devastating in Massachusetts. Imagine now we have a candidate running on the most important issue of the day, the crushing economic impact, the crushing impact of reducing your economic freedom, the crushing impact of dictating to you how your faith and your speech rights will be impinged upon through Obamacare, and we put up someone who believes in Obamacare, but just at the state level, not the federal level. How effective an opponent would that be? How about someone who looks at the problems on Wall Street when it was melting down and said, oh, let's get the government to go and repair it, like John McCain and Barack Obama did in 2008. Well, unfortunately, they were joined by Mitt Romney and Newt Gingrich, but not by Rick Santorum. And finally, when it came to the politicization of science and man-made global warming, I did not sit on a couch with Nancy Pelosi ever in my life. For the record. Nor did I sign into law a provision that put carbon caps on power plants in Massachusetts. We need someone who can go out and talk about the message and not just say, I'm for it now, but talk about what you believed in from the very beginning and create a clear contrast with Barack Obama.